Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday morning. It is 9:15-ish Central Time. And my name is Tracy Brown. I am so glad to be here and to be here with you for the CSLDallas Sunday morning Science of Mind class. And I always have to stop and think through that and say it a little slowly because it reminds me, being here reminds me of growing up in a different belief system and having to go to Sunday school every morning before big church. And so there's a part in my mind that's like, are you ready for Sunday school? It's the Sunday Science of Mind class. And if you're a regular, you know that where we meet inside of CSLDallas also is our official art gallery, and every month we feature a different artist. And this month the artist is Lauren McGregor. Yeah, if you've been around us, you know Lauren McGregor is one of our staff members who does an amazing job. And who knew that she was such a talented artist? So I highly recommend, if you are on campus or if you come on campus, that you come and you not only look at her art, but you better purchase it before I figure out where I'm going to get the money. I have my eye on 4 pieces already. Luckily for you, I don't have art money in my budget this month, but we're going to figure that out. Okay, so Science Mind class, Sunday morning. Let's dive in. We are going to begin on the bottom of page 75 with the section that is titled, Where Do We Get Our Mental Impressions? And if you haven't been with us the last few weeks, this is in chapter 2 of the Science of Mind textbook. And chapter 2, the title is Mind, the Greatest Discovery. So after spending a few weeks on chapter 1, which was all about in the beginning God and the nature of spirit, as we think about it from a metaphysical perspective, then we did that for a few weeks, and now we're moving into mental thought and why mind and how mind actually is so important to our understanding of how things work and how the nature of spirit operates in us, as us, and through us. So this section is all about the mental impressions. Reading, bottom, page 75. The paramount problem of philosophy now, as in the past, is how and from whence do we get our mental impressions? Kant says we are able to perceive an object because it awakens an intuitive perception within us. How could it awaken an intuitive perception within us unless the medium which created the object already existed within us? The intuitive perception was not the result of perceiving the object, but was itself the cause of the object being perceived. This is what Emerson would have us understand when he says, there is one mind common to all individuals. One mind common to all individuals. So that's the first paragraph. I'm going to stop there for a minute. Where do we get our mental impressions? In this paragraph, Ernest Holmes challenges us to consider, do we get our mental perceptions from what we see or what we're experiencing right now? Or is it that the perception is already there? There is something already existing that then is triggered by or we are reminded of as a result of seeing that thing or being in that experience. And with him ending that paragraph with the reference to Ralph Emerson saying that there is one mind common to all individuals, it is a reinforcement of that principle that there is one universal mind that we are all tapping into, and it is available to all of us, and we can use it. And we know what we know, and we experience what we experience, but the infinite content of infinite mind is existing, and our brains, our minds are a subset of that universal mind. Does that make any sense? No, not at all. If it doesn't make any sense at all, then think about how you would formulate your question, because in a few minutes we'll be asking for your questions. And if it does make sense, think about why it makes sense to you, and what example in your life can you share with us that reinforces why it makes sense to you. Next paragraph. The next paragraph is science. Oops, that's not true. The next paragraph is, that which is apparently outside can become known to the individual through intuition, because the perception and the perceiver must be in one and the same mind. I love this sentence enough to read it again. That which is apparently outside can become known to the individual through intuition, because the perception and the perceiver must be in one and the same mind.
And you're going to finish that conversation in 45 minutes?
Absolutely. So again, we're at the top of page 76, the first full paragraph. No object can appear to exist in the objective world unless there is first a subjective world to perceive the object. There is no object on the outside of reality, capital R reality, but capital R reality must be an infinite perceiver or an infinite mind, one mind common to all. Now, if you're new to Ernest Holmes, you may be saying, didn't he just say that? Yeah, he said it 3 times in like 8 lines, because it's so important. And it's important for us to be able to take it in, but also make the connection to it. Then Ernest Holmes moves on in the next paragraph to build a bridge between biblical writing and metaphysical interpretation related to this. The Bible says, quote, "In him we live and move and have our being." Him, it, or God. Jesus said, reality is not in the mountain, not afar off, but within us. So without trying to define, without making any attempt to explain, we make this simple statement. Mind is. Mind is, and mind is both universal and individual. It is not only universal and abstract, it is also individual and concrete. The mind which is personified is the same mind that is universal. This is the perception that Buddha chooses. Oh my gosh. This is the perception that Buddha, Jesus, and other great spiritual leaders had. They understood that the universe has to be one in order to be at all. Jesus saw it when he said in substance, if I cast out devils by Beelzebub, the prince of devils, that is a house divided against itself, which cannot stand. And Jesus also said, who hath seen me hath seen the Father. Jesus had arrived at a perception, and I would say an understanding of oneness. Okay. There's a little bit more, but we got some really meaty stuff here. There is only one mind, there is universal mind, and there is the personalized mind, and they are the same mind. The perception of oneness requires us, or the understanding of oneness requires us to recognize that there is not something happening out here that is giving us our connection, that the connection already exists, and we are bridging the connection because we already have within us an access to universal mind and the truth of life itself. So let's see where you are on that. There's a little bit more that I do want to get to before we close today, and that'll kind of cap it all. But just on what you've heard so far, what are your ideas? What are your thoughts? What are your questions? What are your examples? Want to hear from you online. I was getting ready to give you instructions, but that's not my job. That is Ryan Brown's job. Tracy Brown, Ryan Brown, it's the Brown team today. So, Ryan Brown, jump on in here.
That's right. Thank you very much for not taking my job today. Thank you, Dr. Tracy. And welcome to you, and welcome to everybody here in the room. And welcome to all of those all over the globe who are watching us and joining us today. And as you know, you didn't come here for the side dish. You came here for the meat and potatoes. And that's exactly what Dr. Tracy Brown brings every time she's here with us. So while you got those questions stewing in your brain, I want to give you some instructions on how you can engage with us. For the folks here in the room, just simply raise your hand. Myself or the iconic Richard over here to my right will help bring a microphone to you. And sharing is caring. So feel free to hand it off to a friend as they raise their hand as well. And for the folks who are joining us via Zoom, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below on the reactions, and or put your questions inside of the chat. And the same goes true to all of those around the world here joining us on Facebook Live. You can put your chat in, or your question, I should say. You can put a chat in the chat if you want to chat, but we would love questions too. So I will bring that into the room as well. And I always like to mention that we do keep those anonymous so that way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. I do see we have a hand online here. Let's go
online first, and then we've got two in the room.
All right, perfect. So, it's one of my favorite guys out here, Armando. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Armando, and join us?
Good morning, Armando.
Good morning, Dr. Tracy. What I want to share about this with, I think the first couple of years that I started with CSLDallas, I struggled a lot with this thought, but I kept at it, and I kept at it until, I reached out to practitioners. I did everything I needed to do because I knew at some point I would be able to get to that one mind. And what I discovered is that in 2017, when I did not know where Carpet Project was going to start, I went away to the cabins and I climbed up to the top of the mountain, and I still had no idea where I was going to land. And I raised my hands and I put myself in a yoga position, and I looked up and I said, I'm ready, bring it on. take me where you need for me to be. And lo and behold, not knowing anywhere, nothing, and I wound up in South Dallas. And one of the other things may sound kind of crazy, but with nonprofits, you have board of directors. But I started thinking, well, why can't I have a spiritual board with spiritual leaders that I believe in, that I talk to every day? I check in with my spiritual board every day, and I just share, here's what's going on, lead me, guide me, what's next. And it just happens. It just happens. And just believing and keeping that faith. But I believe also, discipline. Reading, writing gratitude, all of those things. For me, that's been the biggest difference. It's just keeping at it and not giving up. And every time that I manifest, or every time that something unfolds that it blows my mind, it just reinforces that I am one with the universe, that I am one with God, and I'm here to be of service. So that's what I wanted to share.
So grateful for your sharing. Armando, put your hands over your ears because I have a secret to tell everybody else. So if I were going to write a book, a guidebook for how to use and apply spiritual principles in my life, it would be a series of interviews with Armando Cantu, because he has modeled it, and just by the example, okay, you can uncover your ears. So these examples today are just 3 examples of really how you break down the barrier. Now, one of the barrier that our brain wants us to think, that universal mind is out here and I'm over here, or God is over here and I'm over here, or God is up here and I'm down here, because this chapter really talking about the mind, universal mind, the collection of information, memories, experience that's in that Rolodex file cabinet or database, however you want to think about it, that our minds have access to, is really, are we getting out of our own way to tap into the universal experience, the universal history, the universal memory bank? And I'm grateful Armando gave that example of, for him, going out into nature, and it could be anywhere, but going someplace where you're not distracted, and then simply surrendering into the universal mind for direction and guidance, practicing doing that. And you don't have to go to the mountains. You can go sit in a chair in your home and have that experience. But Armando reminds us also about his third piece of discipline. I have to do that. And I have to do it over and over and over. I can't just think about it, which actually is going to be part of the talk today. Like, am I being the presence? Am I being the practice? Or am I doing my life without that, right? So that's just a little bit of shameless promo for today's talk. And even if you're watching this as a recording, go back to September 3rd and watch the Sunday talk, because it's going to be really in alignment with what we're talking about right now.
All right. Should we go this way first?
I think so. Where's your hand up? Oh, then let's just
Okay,
go
then
right
we're
over
going to
here.
go this way.
Oh,
right.
no, my hand wasn't up. Oh, no, don't put the...
Don't put me on the spot.
Ross.
There we go. Go ahead and say your name and ask your question.
My name is Ross. I have a reputation here now.
And that is?
I'm not telling. Anyway. I've been around this for a long, long time. And it's so easy to say, I intellectually recognize this is true. Right. But what do you do when you don't feel it? Because it strikes me that this is, for me, you have to feel it to feel the connection to everything. and my big brain doesn't really help with that.
Correct. That's a great question. And I know you are not the only one who has that question. You're the only one who is brave enough to ask it right now, but I know in the room or online, somebody else is thinking that truth. So there's no magic. There really is no magic. You're way ahead of a lot of people who don't know it or don't believe it, even if they've read it. So knowing it intellectually is a huge, giant step. Feeling it, like everything else, comes as a result of changing our beliefs and behaving in alignment with the new belief. So the disconnect comes when we know something intellectually, but we are either doubting it, questioning it, or living based on past beliefs and knowledge. So there's no magic. The process is just, how do I test it in my own life? How do I confirm it in my own life? You'll notice one of the things that I said was like, okay, do you have questions, but also do you have examples of how you know this to be true in your own life? There is nothing Tracy can say that will make you feel it as an internal knowing. The only way the feeling matches the belief is when we create our own examples in our own experience, thereby proving it to ourselves that what I'm thinking is true. And that's all. I mean, and so I will add this one thing because of the way that you phrased it, Ross. You get the opportunity to get yourself out of your own way. So when you realize, you and lots of us, including me sometimes, it's like, I realize I'm thinking about it, and I'm looking for how it's not true. Or I'm looking for, I need one more thing for it to click in my brain. And sometimes I have to just tell my brain, shut up. Like, stop overthinking it. If I believe this is a truth, let me just search for and ask for the demonstration of that. And then for me, what I do is I will start journaling. Like I'll say, for the next 7 days, I'm going to look for proof of that truth or that wisdom or that fact or that principle. And then every day, at least once, I will ask myself, how did I see that show up today? Whether it's in my life or Jan's life or Glenda's life or Darlene's life or, whoever I'm with that day. I'll be like, how did that show up? And it's amazing. After a week or two, all of a sudden now I own that belief. It's not some abstract thing that I read that Ernest Holmes wrote. It's like, oh, got it. So that's how we transition from just thinking of it as an idea.
You mean it requires discipline? Oh.
That's what Armando said. That's what Armando said. Next.
My name is Carmen. I can relate to what you're saying, Dr. Tracy. I just experienced, I've been coming to CSLDallas over a year now. And,
not for the mic, for us.
Oh, okay. I've been coming to CSLDallas like over a year now. And I get so much wisdom and information, and I think that I resonate with it. But sometimes I say it and I think it, but I don't apply it in motion. And so recently, I have, I'm gonna be honest, dealing with abandonment and rejection. And I realized that's me fearing of me rejecting abandoning myself. And so I actually did something different. I actually applied the truth and started questioning and getting out of my head, and expressing my truth. And the ending result was completely different. And now the light turned on. Now I understand the whole thing about, speaking your truth, setting boundaries, and everything makes so much sense to me. And so now I'm aligned. And so now I'm at like understanding like what it means to protect your peace. What does that mean? And you think that you know what that is. And for me, I didn't until I actually changed and started walking in the truth and emotion. And so that's how I got in line with myself, is when I actually stepped into it and started walking into it, and then I aligned.
Wow. Woo, that's a whole lesson right there. Right there. That's a whole Sunday talk. That's a whole Sunday class. Right there in a nutshell. And I love the way that you phrased, I'll hear something here and it resonates with me. A lot of times what happens is we mistake something resonating or some information resonating with us as we know it now. And so I love that you chose that languaging. Like it resonates with me, but now until I actually apply it, and then when you applied it, not just repeating it over and over, but apply what it means, that you had a different outcome, right? You did something different. Okay, there was a pattern. There was something that came up that's come up before and before and before and before. But instead of responding in the same way, you responded in a way that applies the spiritual principle, and you had a different outcome, which then reinforced our saying, TSRW, and that then inspires you to do it again, right? And for anyone out there or in here who doesn't know what TSRW is what we say when we apply spiritual principle and we have a manifestation or a demonstration, and it's just an acronym for, wow, this shit really works. Like, wow, this science really works. This stuff really works. Oh my goodness. And that then gives us the groundwork to apply it more, to go deeper, to really see how we can use it. So thank you for that. And I can guarantee you're not the only person who has had to learn ways to apply spiritual principle to healing, abandonment, and concerns or habitual reactions to rejection or abandonment or any of those other emotional groundings that become a part of us until we decide we want to experience peace and joy and beauty and order and do the things that will help us reveal the truth of those spiritual principles and replace all of the emotional dysfunction that may have occurred in our lives up until now. Okay, let's go online, and then we'll come back in the room.
Yeah, I see Anita. Anita, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hey, good morning, Dr. Tracy and community. I want to kind of maybe touch a little bit on what Ross said about feeling it, and then the question at hand, right? And so I go to the dichotomy of 2010 versus 2020 in my life. And in 2010, I was facing a layoff. I was scared, thought I was going to lose my home, a relationship ending, and I was wrapped in fear. And I started doing spiritual practice, right? That I would sit at the foot of my bed at night on my hope chest, and I would do a little meditation. And y'all have heard me say it, that I know that I am supported in all ways, that I always have plenty to spare and plenty to share, pressed down, good measure, and overflowing. And said that so much until, Ross, what I did is I embodied that. And when I embodied that idea and that thought, that when in 2020 I got laid off, there was absolutely no fear, no question but what I was going to be taken care of and everything would be fine. And I had, the fear was gone. And, I just moved through 7 months of unemployment as if nothing had changed, because I knew who held my tomorrow. And that becomes a knowing within you when you do your spiritual practice and you embody the truth that life just goes on and you can relax because you know who's got your back.
Whew, that's beautiful and true, and such a powerful and practical example of, well, I said it before and I say it a lot, like, this is not magic. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, the founder of the Universal Foundation for Better Living, took a phrase that has become really common, but when she was saying it decades ago, it wasn't as common, and she made it something that became a catchphrase for us. It works if you work it. It works if you work it. Now, that is, intellectually, we know that makes sense. But until we actually do it, like Carmen's example of, oh, wait, I'm going to apply this. And as Carmen builds that in and continues to see, oh, that means I need to do this. And, oh, I'm doing this. I'm saying this. I'm holding myself accountable, to Anita's example of it got her through a tumultuous time, but then she continued to reinforce that belief, that principle over and over and over again until it became a belief. And then the belief became an embodiment. Like, there's no question. This is just how life is. This is how my life is. And it becomes as clear as me looking in the mirror and saying, I'm wearing a white dress. Like, my brain doesn't question that. Or, any one of you thinking about the kind of car you drive. If I turned to Jan and I said, oh, Jan, I love that you drive a red Beetle Bug, the Volkswagen. She would smile at me, but in her mind she would be like, that's not what I drive. I have a white Nissan. Like, what is she talking about? And then she might go to Darlene and say, is Tracy okay? Like, she knows what I drive. Like, there wouldn't be any question. Jan would not be going, well, I wonder if I do drive a red Volkswagen. Like, that's crazy. So the embodiment becomes so clear, so complete, that no one is going to move you from it, including Ross's own brain. right? Because for me, that's what happens. Other people will be reinforcing the message. I'll come here on Sunday and Dr. Petra will give a message and I'll be like, yeah, that's right. And then, maybe I'll go to meditation on Wednesday night and I'll take it all in. I'll be like, oh, this is so good. But in those quiet moments where I am by myself and then I'm looking at my checkbook or my bank balance, or I am dealing with a difficult client, or right in those moments, it's my brain that is like, well, I don't know if that's really true. Or, well, that's true, but it's not showing up right now. The doubt is in me. So when we embody it, as Anita said, when we take certain principles and build them into our own very fabric of thinking and being and breathing and living, then no one, including ourselves, is able to move us off that belief or stance. And in the occasion where I am moving myself off of that stance because whatever it is feels like a crisis or it's a new situation, in that instance, that is why we go, or I go, and I text or call or email a licensed practitioner and spiritual coach, or I reach out to a minister, or I'm like, okay, I can't believe this right now, even though I know it's true. So I need you to coach me through it, or I need you to do a spiritual mind treatment and pray for the actual truth. And I'm just going to get out of the way. Okay, we've got Ross, and then we've got online. Or do we have? Yes.
I took a step in this direction, and a whole set of people who were horribly aggravating to me stopped being aggravating. Here's the shocking part. I was certain they were a pain. And what it did is it shook my whole, what's real? Because I had years and years of enduring these people, and all of a sudden they're just so simple, and they're not, I don't endure them anymore. What's real?
That is lovely. That is so lovely. Because what we know to be true is that what is real is what we claim to be real. Online.
Well, I wanted to honor everybody's questions, but I also wanted to honor, I know you wanted to cap off today. All right, so let's do one more online question, and I'm going to call into the room Shauna. Shauna, do you want to unmute yourself?
Shauna.
Good morning, Dr. Tracy.
Hey.
I'll make this very quickly so you can finish, but I am launching on Tuesday a brand new online virtual program, and I really feel around leadership, and I really feel called to do this. But this week, I realized that my anxiety is so high, not because of the program content. I know that inside and out. It's the medium. I'm working with 2 online educational platforms. I'm going to be doing chat rooms. I don't have a Brian Brown that I would kill for, so I'm learning it myself and trying to do it myself. And I realized that as I've been going through all this steep learning curve, I felt smaller and smaller, right? Just because I'm swimming in lack of competency around, the mechanics of launching this program. And so this morning, I never miss this class, even if I'm traveling or like today, have other things to do. I always call in because I always know that somehow it centers me. And the last 4 days has just been really tough because as I get closer and closer, I'm feeling more and more insecure and more incompetent and more afraid that I won't show up on the program doing everything flawlessly, which I know I won't, but that I won't. And I call in again this morning, and again, exactly what I'm supposed to hear from you and from the other members of the class, I hear. And it just helps me step back and go, you don't have to do this alone. You're not alone. You're called to do this. You don't have to show up perfect in front of the attendees. That's what you're trying to teach them as heart-centered leaders, is just be human. So I just want to say thank you. And thank you to everybody in the class, because I learned so much and got reminded about so much that I needed to hear today. Thank you.
So grateful for this particular sharing, because it's so real in the human experience. And so here's what I know is absolutely true. Shauna rolls out this class. It is happening right here and right now, and all the wisdom of the universe that has already flowed through her to create the content is perfect. And the building of confidence and competence around the mechanical aspects, the technical aspects, reflect all that is universal mind related to technology, related to and picked from the brain and the experience of Orion Brown, picked from the brain and the experience of everyone who has ever delivered an online course before, that this is all accessible to Shauna in every moment. And I'm so grateful for knowing that the experience of being unsure creates the perfect opportunity for Shauna to give an example to her students about moving into leadership from a heart-centered place, knowing that everything that needs to be required, needs to be given, needs to be shared, is already present. This is the perfection of universal mind in action, right here, right now, and even on Tuesday, since there's only one eternal moment. But for the human brain, let's say Tuesday, and the next Tuesday, and the next Tuesday, and the next Tuesday. I know this is done. I am grateful for it. And I simply surrender into the flow of this experience, knowing that Shauna's experience is all experience. And I bless it. And we affirm it together by saying, and so it is. Whew, so we've got about 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And in the on page 76, let's end out this section with the last full paragraph, the bottom of 76 and the top of 77. Images of thought, although they appear to arise from without, actually arise from the objective side of that which is part of a subjective within. In order that nature may be coherent and come into self-expression, there must be an objective or a manifest world. But that which is physically outside of us still exists in the same medium in which we have our being. And the intelligence by which we perceive it is the same intelligence that created it. Therefore, while it is objectively separate, it is subjectively unified. Our images of thought arise from within a medium in which both the one who sees and that which is seen exist in a state of inner unity. God exists in everything. God exists in me. And because God exists in me, I am able to recognize other beings in whom God exists. Spirit is the medium through which I am conscious of myself, of others, and of my environment. Deep breath. I am that I am. There is no more. So let all of that sink in all week. Dr. Peter will be back next week for the Science Mind class and for the Sunday celebration service. If you want to go more into the basic principles that Science of Mind teaches, then consider joining me for the next 2 Saturdays. We're taking a 5-week class, Universal Spiritual Principles and Practices, and turning it into, or transforming the form into 2 full Saturday experiences. And so you'll get 15 hours of content around principles and practices by hanging out and doing like really a master class on 2 Saturdays. For the people who find coming week after week after week, midweek, challenging, we're trying out this format. So join us and join us for the celebration service. Any other key announcements, Ryan?
No, you stole my job on that one. I was going to tell the people about that. But I do have one last one. For those who are looking to be a host for our upcoming AIS, that's Adventures in Spirit, we're going to be doing an amazing class. All the materials will be provided, so we are looking for hosts. Come and see me afterwards. I can guide you where to go. Or for the folks online, I put a link in there too. It's going to be a fun experience, and it's going to be starting in October. That's all.
Right, and the theme is thriving. So if you want to thrive in your life in all ways, you want to join a home study group. We're signing up the hosts right now, but look for it for your opportunity to join a group in person or online. Right, and don't forget, we've got the amazing Lauren McGregor art here. So if you're on campus, check it out and beat me to buying it. All right, that's it for this week. Have a good one.